Alrighty then. You know, where do we even start? We could start with where we ended, which was with the Jason Meyers kick. We could start with the play calling. We could start with the referees. That's where I want to go. I want to start with us. Because, normally what I like to do is I like to hear the responses of the other Seahawk fans. Because the community as a whole is pretty awesome. And the community as a whole right now is responding in a lot of emotional ways. And one of those ways is, one might say, to set themselves ablaze. and whatever preconceived notion they have about any player or whatever, they're taking whatever rage they have and directing it right at it. So in this case, it would be like Jason Meyers, who, before he missed that kick at the very end, which was a 55-yard attempt, if it was a 35-yard attempt or a 45-yard attempt or something like that, something that where you're like, okay, this should be a sure thing, but it's a 55-yard attempt, which are missable. I can look for the percentage, actually. Let's see. Okay. 55, this is, let's find a reputable source. Okay. 50-plus yard field goals are simply more attempted today than in the past, but the regularity in which they are made is only 57%. Good, but not so good that you'd expect it to make... Not so good that you'd make it a tactic to simply get to where you'd kick a 50-yard field goal. So then the argument is, well, how much money is he making? He's being paid too much money. But he just made 15 kicks in a row. He's made 19 of his last 20 in a row. So he's made 19 of his last 21 in a row. That's pretty fucking good, considering a lot of those are 50-yard kicks. He just happened to miss this 55-yarder where, according to the way that NFL kickers roll, he's got a 57% chance about to make it, going by the average. And then he's got his own standard. Kickers aren't perfect. So every time that one just kind of craps the bed, quote unquote, at the very end of the game, when the pressure's on the line, you feel that pressure. But when he misses the kick in like the second quarter, and it's also a 55-yarder, it's the same distance, the same situation, and at the end of the second half, like, we missed that opportunity. It just doesn't feel, it feels heavier when it's the fourth quarter, because you gotta make that kick. That's where you get paid the big bucks, to make that 55. But if you looked, it was a hard kick, and it was short, and it's a 55-yarder. Yeah, I'm upset. And if you're upset, I understand. But to say, we got to get this fucker off the team, I mean, even Justin Tucker misses 55-yarders. The guy who's known for hitting 55-yarders and 60-yarders, he misses 55-yarders. It's really hard to do it. Also, it would have been nice if he had made that. Because Geno Smith just drove himself with that arm and willed himself down the field. I'm amazed that he did it. One of my fears was if he sprained that tendon, he goes out there and starts tearing that arm by ripping they said, yeah, go down there and rip the ball. I'm like, that's what I'm afraid of. He's going to go down there and just rip it. He's going to rip his arm. But no, he goes down there, and that second ball looked a little floppy, right? And so I think he was having like some pain problems and some functioning problems, because I don't know if any of you have ever had your arm clotheslined while being sacked. Well, the ball's not even in your hand. And it's interesting how you got all these teams where they're getting unsportsmanlike penalties called against them, and they're getting late hit on the quarterback and roughing the quarterback passes and throwing their weight on top of the quarterback, all of this. And here's Geno Smith. He doesn't have the ball in his hand, and he's falling onto his back, right? What they've been showing is if you take your body weight and you throw your play. So there's that too, which I always ignore. But let's get into it, right? If we're going to fucking get into it, let's get into it. If you're going to say that taking a player and throwing your body weight on top of the player counts at it, then surely if this player's arm is extended without the ball and they're the quarterback, which means that they're not initiating a throw, and somebody comes in afterwards while they're on the ground and takes their arm and just clips the hell out of it, that's roughing the passer. Because that's the exact opposite of that. That's like the exact opposite extreme of, well, I'm just completing the play. I tackled you, the ball got out of your hands, and I'm taking you to the ground. That's, oh, you're already to the ground. I'm running through, and I'm body chopping, clotheslining your arm by the elbow in half. Which, of course, as we've seen with Richard Sherman via Cam Chancellor, can fuck up your arm. And if you're a quarterback, you kind of need your arm. And so then Geno Smith begrudgingly and smartly grabbing his arm like, oh, what the fuck? Crawls off to the tent. And here's where the Drew Lock truthers arose. These have been the people who, since day one, have hated Geno Smith passionately. Now, what I'm about to say has nothing to do with Drew Lock. Drew Lock's in his own situation. He's doing his own thing. I just have some issues with our fan base and the way that we behave towards players. For instance, I mentioned the way that we're behaving towards Jason Meyers. Absolutely should have made the kick. Also, you're ignoring everything else he's doing. Sometimes you're just going to miss a kick. Sometimes Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson, whoever, is not going to be able to complete that touchdown at the drive at the end of the game. Because nobody's perfect. Shit happens. But then when you look back on their career, they're doing fantastic. So this gets back to Drew Lock and all these Drew Lock truthers saying, well, Drew Lock never even really had an opportunity. He got COVID, and then this last preseason, he looked a little iffy. But here's his chance, because Geno Smith is kind of been kicking this Rams defense's ass. They have like Fuller, and yeah, sure, Donald's been giving him some trouble. But other than these refs throwing penalties that keep giving us like 10 yards backwards, we're kicking their ass. Like, I don't think anyone really feels like we lost to a team that was better than us. We had Puka Nacua shut down till that offensive pass interference call that wasn't called on the 1 yard line that he then scored a touchdown on. So when Drew Lock comes out, you're like, oh, well, according to the Drew Lock truthers, he's got a much bigger arm than Geno. So he's going to be throwing up all these seams, and he's going to use Noah Fant better too, and this is going to be awesome. None of that happened. Absolutely none of that happened. I believe he exited the game with a QBR of 2.6. And things got really quiet on Seahawks Twitter. Not from the Geno folks or the other folks. There's the people that are pretty liberal about it. They're like, I'd like to upgrade Geno, and I have some opinions about Geno, but I'm talking about not the Drew Lock truthers. There's the Drew Lock truthers, but they're the Geno haters that want Drew Lock. Not necessarily because they believe in him, but because they just can't stand that Geno Smith is their quarterback. And then out comes Drew Lock, and as soon as he performs, silence. And it was wonderful on that part. It wasn't wonderful to see, but it was just wonderful that maybe we can finally put this conversation behind us, and we can move forward. Because I don't want to hear the constant nitpicking and arguing about things and whataboutisms anymore. Let's talk about what happened on the field. And what happened on the field today is that we kept putting in ourselves in great opportunities to score points. We kept driving down the field between the tackles. Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet looked great. And then for some reason, even after Kenneth Walker got hurt, we were running well. But when Geno went down, it became the Drew Lock show. And I'm curious, why wasn't it this is the offensive line and Charbonnet's show? Because Charbonnet has more total reps in the season than Drew Lock. And let's go from there, because we're in a situation where we have, 17-7 at the time, or 16-7. All we need to do is just establish the run for Drew Lock. And instead it was, we're going out there slinging it to JSN deep down the field. And so I put that on Waldron and maybe Drew Lock's decision making to just wing it. We should have been trying to use our best weapons, which is statistically right now Charbonnet. And then that would have opened up everything else. But as you could see, Drew Lock he was literally talking to JSN and others after the snap, like, no, yeah, I meant that you needed to go over there. And I meant that you needed to go over there. Which means that Waldron was calling plays that weren't putting Drew Lock in a position to succeed. So it was a complete coaching failure. So if you're a Drew Lock truther and you're trying to look for like some meat on the bone to try to save, this, and I think there might still be something there for Drew Lock, and unfortunately for him, that's how it went. But I think it was an absolute coaching failure on the part of Waldron and company on the offensive side to call plays for a quarterback that was going in cold. Especially since your running game was red hot. Yeah, they might stuff you, but then let's focus on methodically getting this thing going, right? Let's take care of the ball. And we even saw later, after they realized, oh, this guy can't complete passes down the field, the defense wasn't falling for anything, he started throwing the ball directly to defenders. It was not a pretty showing by Drew Lock and company. And I'm not saying the defense lost heart. They clearly didn't. But when suddenly you're on the field for the entire second half, and then you stop the Rams' offense in the red zone, and Puka Nacua falls over and then flops and pretends that Witherspoon pushed him even though they're a foot away from each other, and the refs throw a flag and you get a whole new set of downs, you're going to get tired. this game felt like, oh yeah, we're clearly the better team, except. And then at the very end, Geno Smith comes in, tears the Rams a new butthole, just tears them a new butthole and drives down the field, gets us in a position for a field goal. Unfortunately, it's a 55-yarder, which we've established is a hard one to do. But if he didn't get hurt, right? Except if he didn't get hurt, except if Puka Nacua, if he didn't sell to the ref that he was pushed, and it's like a soccer play where the guy falls down and he's like, oh, my shin, and the other player's like 2 yards away from him, and the ref throws a flag. You're like, wait, what? This is why, like, certain plays that are like, oh yeah, this is going to be a 15-yard penalty, it's going to be a 47-yard or 46-yard penalty on Woolen. Meanwhile, he was making a play on the ball. Woolen was, which you're allowed to do, but he's not pushing for separation. Meanwhile, Puka Nacua, his first touchdown, pushes off of the DB to create separation, turns around and catches the ball, so the DB doesn't have a chance at the ball. You're both entitled to the space where the ball is. And so it was just like, there's a whole bunch of, well, yeah, we were the better team, except, because it wasn't a case of, Henderson, we couldn't stop that B gap. There was a point at the end of the first half where we couldn't stop the screen on the left during the 2-minute drill. But then that went away. It wasn't till like midway through the end of the third, start of the fourth quarter, that our defense started to get a little bit tired. But then we would shore things up in the red zone. And then Puka Nacua flopped, gave him some more reps, and then they got a touchdown. So their 2 touchdowns were aided on drives where how many flags were called? I know both teams had over a dozen. But I just want to know how many were called in the red zone or on third down against us. It was insane. It was not a normal game. And so, like, I find myself leaving this game, like, I'm aware that, like, the Seahawks fans are pissed because we should have won that game. But you can't be pissed at Meyers saying, well, he should have made that kick, because that's not one of those kicks that you just make. If it was like a 35 or a 40-yarder, then sure, he should have made that kick. It was a 55-yarder. That's not a gimme kick. I'm sorry. But when you look at the rest of the performance, the Rams needed Geno Smith to get hurt, Drew Lock to suck balls and throw an interception, and multiple 3-and-outs. They needed refs to help them drive down the field. Remember that first drive with the touchdown? How they needed, like, I think they got like 10 yards on the drive for the touchdown. It was, but they started at their 25. It was dumb. The entire drive was penalties, just walking them down there. And then the Puka Nacua touchdown. I mean, they called OPI on Cup earlier. And so it was like, oh yeah, they're going to be calling OPI. This seems fair, right? This is going to be a fair game. And there was that one, like, call on OPI towards the end of the game where Woolen punched a guy in the face. But when you look at it, the guy takes Woolen's arm and makes him punch himself in the face. So I don't know how the refs are supposed to call that. I mean, yeah, you call it. Woolen's supposed to know better. Keep your hands down. There's that drive where the Rams kept holding, and then the following drive, they make it all the way down towards the end, and then they finally call a holding play on Puka, and they didn't call it on Higbee, who was also holding. And so, like, Pete had, like, obviously been like, they're holding, right? And had to point it out to the refs. And I know people don't like talking about the refs, but sometimes, like, it's disruptive enough that the natural flow of the game mixed with an injury, like, again, how do you clothesline a quarterback's arm when they don't have the ball in their hand and they've already been sacked to the ground and you don't call roughing the passer? I don't understand. And when you listen to the CBS broadcasters, if I hear one more broadcaster refer to the Seahawks as the Seahawks, I'm going to lose my mind. And I don't have much mind left to lose. They do it. Pay attention. They don't do it every time, but every once in a while, somebody will be like, yeah, the Seahawks are coming out. Seahawks. Not the Seahawks. The Seahawks. And then they'll go Seahawks the rest of the broadcast. It's typically like a little bit in like the first half. They'll sneak it in. And they did it today again during the Rams game. And I bet they did it during week 1 too. And you could hear that they were just so excited every time the Rams did anything today, the CBS crew. And so it grinds our gears as Seahawk fans. It's like surely Philadelphia fans or New York fans or Commanders fans can understand having to listen to a broadcast with Troy Aikman when you're playing Dallas. You're like, oh God, Troy Aikman's on this, and he's supposed to call an impartial game, or at the very least, if Troy Aikman's there, you'd want somebody on your side. But no, it's just going to be Troy Aikman just shitting all over your team the entire game, but with a smile, right? Because he's getting paid to smile. And then whenever the other team, in this case the Cowboys, and in our case the Rams, does anything, even if it's like, an illegal play and it's about to be flagged, they're just going crazy, right? And then when the flag goes against them, they're like, I don't agree with that call at all. I don't agree with, right? And we're just sitting here like as Seahawk fans, like, come on now, right? And Troy does that kind of like against every team that the Cowboys go against. He does that against Seahawk fans. I've seen him do it against the 49ers because the Cowboys are his team because Troy played for the 49ers. And I bet Tony does it a little bit too. And we've seen it with Peyton Manning where, there's this meme going around where Eli's like, remember, it's been 8 years. Relax. It's no longer your team. And so it's painful to listen to that CBS broadcast because they're getting the names of our players wrong. They're not even excited when we're on the field. They don't really know what we're doing, and they're really enthused about the Rams and everything going well for the Rams. And if anything goes bad for us, they're really excited for the Rams. And I almost feel like that makes the experience worse for us, so that when Jason Meyers misses a 55-yard kick, people lose their minds just that much more. That was a very stressful game. That was a game where if something was going to go wrong, it was going to go wrong. We'd get like a 15-yard completion, and then it'd be like, oh, well, you guys had a false start. Did we? Yep, you sure did. 5-yard penalty. Okay, well, it's 1st and 15 now. Or, okay, we just completed a 6-yard to Bobo. Okay, but his feet weren't set at the line. Okay. So and then we just get constantly knocked out of the red zone over and over. But the Rams got all these penalties too. They just kind of won the attrition battle at the end of the 2-minute warning. It felt like LA, CBS, and the refs, they didn't care who was going to win. They just wanted to make sure that the game stayed really close. We need to keep the game as close as humanly possible because we need to keep the LA market's eyes on the advertisements. And then in the fourth quarter, whatever. So then in the fourth quarter, whatever, Rams go down, they get a lead, and then we go down. We have an opportunity to get a lead. There's no flags or anything really influencing the game, and then we just miss our 55-yard field goal. Huzzah, we lose. They didn't care who won or lost. Ultimately, they got what they wanted. Everyone had their seats in butts watching for all 4 quarters, to the detriment of our lead and our ability to just kind of romp them the whole game. And it got our quarterback hurt, our starting halfback hurt, and I know I'm oversimplifying it, but if you're somebody who thinks that the way that games function around the players doesn't influence games itself, then I don't know what to tell you other than players need to overcome those circumstances, which is something I strongly believe in. Because ultimately, if a team is trying to give an advantage to another team, the Giants should be winning and the Jets should be winning a lot more than they do. You still have to take advantage of opportunities that are given to you. And you still get guys like Geno Smith with a blown out elbow coming out and marching down the field. One thing I really requested was the use of the tight ends in the second half. We didn't get any of that, especially with Drew Lock. When he came in, I think him having some history with Fant probably would have been nice to use that. JSN had a good day. He's obviously becoming like a main piece of our offense. Lockett moved up to second all-time on all of our receiving charts, I think, behind Steve Largent. And then I think DK moved ahead of Galloway on yardage. So he's 6th all-time. I'm going off the top of my head. Kenneth Walker had a pulled oblique. So I know Pete has already done his presser. Other people will talk about that. I'll talk about that on Monday during Tell the Truth Monday. Because I'm not telling the truth right now. I'm talking about my feelings. Which is we need to maybe chill on the players a little bit. And talk about the coaching. And talk about like the environment. Because I think the coaching and the environment had a lot more to do with this game than the players. And we can definitely talk about Drew Lock, right? But what's a behavior we need to work on as fans is understanding that these players are being put in successful situations quite often. And we saw that with Geno Smith. And maybe, and I've stressed this all week, you need to express gratitude for what you have. I know that there were people that were gleeful when Geno got hurt. Not because he got hurt. course not. I mean, sure, there's some people that probably, yeah. But we're not talking about those assholes, no. We're talking about the Geno haters who wanted to move on because Drew Lock is better. And then Drew Lock put up a quarterback rating of 2.6. Oh, yeah. So, here's to you. I appreciate you guys for spreading your shit all over Seahawks Twitter for the last couple years without using any common sense. Go Seahawks. Fuck the Rams. Fuck the refs. Respect the players. Do better. If you know who that is, give them a shout out. Like and subscribe. I appreciate you. I'll see you guys tomorrow.